Gunfire has been echoing through the streets of Beirut as Shia supporters of Hezbollah and Sunni supporters of the Lebanese government clash across the country's capital. Moves by the government to disable Hezbollah's telecommunication system and clamp down on security at Beirut airport has angered Hezbollah's leader, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, who says this is a declaration of war. His supporters quickly took to the streets, setting up barricades and roadblocks. The Lebanese army has been deployed but has been ordered not to intervene without direct orders. Many fear this is a return to the 16-year civil war that paralyzed the country until the early 1990s. As we look at the fighting on the streets of Beirut, we take your calls with today's question: is Lebanon plunging back into civil war? Well, joining me now in Houston is Ambassador Edward Derigian, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State and founding director of the James A. Baker III Institute for Public Policy at Rice University. Ambassador Derigian, thank you very much for joining us, sir. I have to ask, do you believe this is the start of another civil war in Lebanon?
Well, up to the last incidents of the last day, the conventional wisdom was that the Lebanese parties would not make the fatal miscalculation of plunging Lebanon into another civil war. They've been there, they've seen the tragedy that could take, and therefore there was a drawing back from worst case scenarios. Unfortunately, what we're witnessing over the last 24 hours is a situation that is easily capable of getting out of control and plunging the country into sectarian violence and political violence. I am quite disturbed over the Sunni-Shia clashes. That could quite easily escalate into larger sectarian clashes. The unfortunate fact is that the Lebanese people are suffering. They've been suffering now for 17 months without a government, a president being elected, who ironically is a consensus government by both sides of the political equation in Lebanon. And therefore, in this stalemated situation, incidents can quickly escalate into major crises as we're witnessing now. Right. So briefly, I think that Lebanon can be on the verge of another civil war.
Sir, I have to ask you, the Americans have armed the Lebanese army in effect, and Iran has armed Hezbollah in effect. To what degree is this a proxy war between America and Iran being fought out on Lebanese soil?
Well, Lebanon has unfortunately always been the scene of proxy wars in the Middle East region. That is in many ways the tragedy of Lebanon. Be it in the regional powers, be it the Iranians, be it the Israelis, outside powers. This has been Lebanon's fate. When Lebanon does not have its own internal national consensus, then it is more prey to the influence of outside powers. I fear that this is the situation today. And therefore, if this is not a wake-up call for the Lebanese parties and their leaders to not plunge the country into this chasm again, there should be an emergency reconciliation made, an attempt to come together and form a national unity government, make the hard choices on, first, the consensus president, General Michel Suleiman, and then secondly, to form a government in which all parties, relevant parties, can participate. This is a time for leadership. It's much easier for Lebanese leaders from whatever side to sit back and say no. You know, traditionally, and I've been involved in Lebanon one way or another since 1965, it was my first diplomatic assignment. There was a famous French saying for Lebanese political conciliation: ni vainqueur, ni vaincu, no winners, no losers. The fact now is that the Lebanese people are losing. There are no winners, there are no losers, but the Lebanese people and the Lebanese nation is losing. And it is time for the political leadership to step up to the plate, as we say, and really take some hard decisions toward national reconciliation.
Ambassador Saad Hariri, the son of the late Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri, was live not long ago talking about reaching out to some degree to the Hezbollah leader, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, and he was also asking for some kind of reconciliation over the government impasse. How seriously will his words be taken, in your opinion?
Well, I think his word should be taken seriously in terms that be it Saad Hariri, be it Nasrallah, be it Michel Aoun, whoever the political leaders are, they should all be reaching out or trying to find that common ground. If after serious reconciliation efforts it's found that there is no common ground, that's another story. That will show how critical the situation is. But that effort must be made. I believe that a constructive dialogue in which each side takes into consideration the interests and the positions of the other side and seeks to establish what the common ground is the way forward. Now, if the Lebanese people cannot do that themselves, maybe there is a role for the international community to step in a benevolent way, not in any imperialistic way, but to try to broker the agreement amongst the Lebanese people if they cannot do it themselves.
Isn't that part of the problem, Ambassador, that there is a feeling that the government currently in Lebanon is to some degree a puppet of the US, and that Hezbollah, of course, has higher masters? Isn't the issue that the international influence is blocking the Lebanese people moving forward themselves?
I don't think so. Certainly I'm not going to deny that there's external influence on the various parties. That exists. Lebanon, as we've just discussed, is a area of proxy politics and proxy wars in the region as a whole. But the Lebanese themselves are the agents of constructive political change, not the outside powers. The outside powers do play a role, a very important role, but at the end of the day, that outside role is maximized when the Lebanese parties amongst themselves are weak and are not able to make the decisions for their own future. So this is a time of great testing for the Lebanese leaders and the Lebanese people.
In your opinion, how is the integrity of the Lebanese army? And by that I mean, how likely is it that it can hold together and not split down factions itself?
Well, I think to date the Lebanese army has shown that it is a cohesive force, well-led, professional. It has become quite professional over the years. It never has been, it hasn't been the case always. But I think the Lebanese army is, to date, an instrument of stability for the country. And as we know, under previous recent United Nations Security Council resolutions, the Lebanese army has been given the mandate to spread throughout the country, especially to the south, to establish the security of the country under the mandate of the national army and the national government. So those are positive developments. I hope that the Lebanese army will hold. I hope that the Lebanese army will not break up into sectarian factions. That will truly be the beginning of the end, and then truly there would be a civil war. And
what role do you believe Syria to be playing behind the scenes right now?
Well, Syria, I don't think Syria has an interest in a chaotic Lebanon. I think Syria certainly has an interest in maintaining whatever influence it can in Lebanon, as it has in the past, and especially since 1976, with the ups and downs of its political influence in Lebanon. And as you know, in the UN Security Council Resolution 1559, Syria had to withdraw its military forces from Lebanon. So Syria's interest is to maintain its influence in Lebanon, but a chaotic Lebanon, which can be a threat to the national security interests of Syria itself. I don't even think Iran has an interest in a chaotic Lebanon. What these outside countries want is influence, but they don't want a chaotic situation in which events in Lebanon will force them into making decisions that may not be what they're prepared to do.
Ambassador, as you yourself have said, Lebanon has proved to be a ground for proxy wars. A lot of the analysis on what's going on right now says that the conflict taking place is, of course, of international concern, not just one that affects the Lebanese people. And I wonder what, in your opinion, is the threat of this becoming a wider regional conflict, and how it's spreading basically beyond the borders now?
Well, if you look at the Middle East overall, the situation in the region is fragile, to say the least. We have the very troubled situation in Iraq. We have the recurrent confrontations and clashes between the Israelis and the Palestinians. We have a very unstable and threatening and now dangerous situation in Lebanon. Of course, a deterioration in the situation in Lebanon can have implications for further destabilization throughout the whole region. So this is not a secondary or tertiary matter, what's happening in Lebanon. It can affect the whole region as a whole.
I wonder at this stage how much of a complication there is that there is such a political impasse. It's almost like a chicken and egg situation. No president, no consensus within the coalition government, and without the president, no chance of the government coming together and talking.
Well, you're absolutely right. This is one of the critical absences, the critical voids in Lebanon today. There is no president that can bring the factions together, that can bring the parties together. You have a situation where each party is defending and promoting its own interests, and there's no honest broker who is bringing them together. And that's why, again, one of the reasons we're seeing incidents like the telephone issue with Hezbollah escalate rapidly into major political confrontations, or the strikes on food prices in Lebanon. So each relatively minor issue rapidly escalates into a major confrontation because there is no honest broker, there is no president, and there is no outside international effort truly engaged to bring the parties together.
Ambassador, do you think that there is any chance Hassan Nasrallah is willing to negotiate? He seemed to at one point at least be willing to have some dialogue. Is there a potential break in this impasse?
I think so. Hassan Nasrallah is a very smart political leader, and I think that he does not see it in his interest or the interest of Hezbollah for there to be a wider war, civil war in Lebanon. He would lose in that equation also, as would all the Lebanese people. Hezbollah cannot take over Lebanon. The other parties and factions cannot attack Hezbollah in a military confrontation without the whole country going into a civil war. So therefore, there is no military solution or paramilitary solution to Lebanon's problems. There is only a political solution. And therefore, I think this is the moment for the international community, but in the first instance, the political leaders of Lebanon to seek the common ground in reconciliation talks.
Ambassador Edward Darijian, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Well, after the break, we continue our look at the situation in Lebanon. We ask, is Lebanon sliding into civil war? Don't forget to call in with your questions.